Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain an action-adventure movie called Flight of the Phoenix. Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins in Mongolia's Gobi Desert, where an oil drilling company has employed a group of American workers. It has been months since they began their project, pumping millions of dollars into it. But they still haven't found any oil, resulting in huge losses. This has forced the company to prematurely abandon the project and shut it down. In the aftermath, they send a pilot named Frank and his subordinate AJ to retrieve the workers from the desert. Upon their arrival, the only female staff member, Kelly, is furious at the sudden order from the head office. She begins to protest, but her boss, Ian, calms her down and requests that she cooperate. Following this, Frank instructs the staff to pack their belongings and prepare to board. He declares the plane will head to Beijing, and from there, they will take another flight home. Just as the cargo and crew are loaded, an unfamiliar man named Elliot appears and asks if he can join them. It turns out this guy has been traveling around the world, and he arrived in the desert a few days ago. Frank and his subordinate are a bit hesitant, but when he continues to insist, they agree to let him board. In the following scene, the flight takes off, but problems soon arise when a massive sandstorm occurs while flying over the desert. The plane begins to shake violently, making it impossible to stay still. Frank tries his best to steer it back to safety, but to no avail. Moments later, the rear end of the plane collides with a rock, forcing open the back door. This causes the luggage to fly out uncontrollably, and one of the workers also falls to his death. With no other options, Frank decides to make an emergency landing in the middle of the desert. By the time they land, they discover that 2 more workers have died inside. The plane is nearly destroyed, but thankfully, some of the equipment and fuel are still intact. When the storm finally subsides, the group emerges out of the wreckage. They are horrified to learn that they are stranded in the middle of nowhere. They then check their supplies and calculate that they have enough water and food for only 30 days. As panic begins to set in, a man named Jeremy suggests that they will walk through the vast desert to find help, but another guy, Rady, disagrees, claiming that they don't know their exact location. Because they are surrounded by magnetic mountain ranges, the compass may also experience interference. Moreover, it is the month of July, which is regarded as the hottest time in the desert. Following some discussion, the group decides to wait for help and do nothing for the time being. They eat dinner and then go to sleep inside the airplane. Around midnight, the youngest worker goes outside to urinate in the desert. However, on the way back, his foot collides with a stone, causing him to fall. The boy is now lost as he can't see anything due to the thick sandstorm. He desperately tries to summon his companions, but no one hears him. If he dies, it's his own damn fault. That was pathetic. The next morning, the group realizes that the young boy has gone missing. This worries everyone, especially his best friend Alex, but they opt not to look for him as the weather is still very dangerous. Later, Kelly has a private conversation with Frank where she asks about their chances of survival. The captain bluntly replies that there's no way they will be rescued. He believes that the desert is too vast for anyone to notice them. A few hours later, the rest of the group also realizes that help will not come and that they will die here. But Ian remains confident that someone will come to pick him up because he believes he is crucial to the corporation. Meanwhile, Alex and Jeremy decide that they can't just sit around waiting, so they try to leave with a gallon of water. Frank tries to stop them, but this only ensues a fight between the two parties. During the scuffle, they accidentally knock over the gallon, causing them to lose a large amount of water. At this moment, the stranger Elliot finally speaks up. He suggests collecting usable parts from the wreckage to build another functional plane. He claims to be an aeronautical engineer and seems very confident in his plan. This riles up the rest of the group, and they agree to help him. The only one who opposes the idea is Frank, so he refuses to participate. He argues that their best chance of rescue is to wait, and he's unwilling to waste their limited water and energy on a futile effort. The next morning, the group wakes up to find that one of their workers, Liddy, has disappeared. Kelly becomes worried and decides to go find him. However, Frank stops her and volunteers to go himself instead. After walking for a while, he discovers the body of a worker who fell from the plane when it initially broke. The body is in pieces, with several bullets scattered around it. Frank concludes that the body was used as a test target, implying the presence of dangerous bandits in the area. At this moment, Liddy shows up out of nowhere. Frank asks him to come back, but Liddy refuses and questions why he doesn't want to rebuild the plane. Frank responds that there's no point in clinging to false hope. He believes that they should ration their resources, not waste them on some experiment. However, Liddy states that the most important thing people need is to love each other. If that's not possible, then they should at least have hope. And if there's no hope as well, then they should be given something to do. Upon hearing this, Frank finally agrees to build the airplane and asks Liddy to come with him. After a while, the two arrive at the crash site and Frank announces that he has changed his mind. This makes the group excited, and they start working on the airplane under Elliot's instructions. As it is excruciatingly hot during the day, they work during the night hours. They also decide to name their plane after the legendary bird Phoenix. In the following days, the team assembles the aircraft while carefully managing their water and food supplies. They begin by dismantling the plane to salvage usable parts, then move on to attaching the wings and completing the assembly. Using the collected scrap materials, they slowly mold them into the structure of an airplane. Days later, things take an unexpected turn when a spark ignites a drum of fuel. This causes a massive explosion, resulting in a loss of valuable fuel. Although they have some fuel reserves, they can no longer afford to waste even the slightest bit. The group then decides to labor day and night to shorten the work time. One evening, while they are working, it suddenly begins to rain. This initially delights them as it means fresh water, but to their misfortune, a thunderstorm strikes soon after. Everyone starts running away to save their lives, but Elliot stays there and continues working on the plane. Seeing this, Frank immediately returns and installs a lightning rod, saving Elliot in the nick of time. He then wonders if Elliot is a true engineer, as he did not even recognize the need for a lightning rod. The next morning, AJ gathers everyone and announces that someone has been stealing their water. He reveals that he has carefully calculated their water usage, which has been rapidly depleting over the last few days. To everyone's shock, Elliot comes forward and admits that he is the culprit. He reasons that because he works extra hours, he naturally needs more water. Upon hearing this, Frank scolds him for not asking permission beforehand, but Elliot rudely states that he is the commander and doesn't need anyone's permission. He also asserts that he's the only one here who's irreplaceable. The group is appalled by his rude behavior, but they have no choice but to tolerate him. One day, the group discovers several Mongols camping nearby. Frank worries that they may be bandits, but the others decide to approach them for help. AJ, Alex, and Ian volunteer for the mission, while Frank hides in the background with a gun. Ian, who speaks the local language, communicates with them and explains how their plane crashed. He hopes that the locals will share some of their water with him. At this moment, Alex notices a watch in one of the Mongols' hands, which belonged to his deceased friend. He panics and immediately informs his group, but the Mongol shoots him on the spot. Seeing this, Frank also springs into action and begins firing. He surprisingly kills all the bandits except for one, who manages to run away. The men then bring Alex back to camp and try to treat his wound, but it is already too late, and the poor guy succumbs to his injuries. The next morning, while Kelly is venturing through the desert, she comes across one of the injured bandits. He desperately pleads for her help, putting her in a serious dilemma. In the end, she brings him to the camp, leaving his fate in the hands of her group. Some men assert that he should be killed to avoid any potential danger, while the others suggest that they keep him alive to find a way out of here. But before they can come to a conclusion, Elliot suddenly shoots the bandit to death. This enrages Frank, and he harshly scolds him for his arrogant behavior. But Elliot also doesn't hold back and blames him for everything. He claims that because of the pilot's series of bad decisions, they got stuck in this place. Upon hearing this, Frank finally loses his temper and starts beating up the strange man. In the next scene, Elliot is inside the plane when the rest of the group approaches him. He states that he can't rely on them anymore and decides to abandon the work. When the group pleads with him to reconsider, he demands an apology from everyone. They oblige and say they're sorry, but he is still not satisfied. This guy's a little baby boy. He asks Frank who is in command here, and the latter reluctantly says it's Elliot. Frank also apologizes for his previous behavior, claiming that he lost control. This finally convinces Elliot, and he decides to let go of his grudges and resume work. After a few days, he announces that the plane is now completely ready. The workers are overjoyed upon hearing this and begin to pack their bags to leave. In the meantime, Frank tries to retrieve a map from Elliot's backpack, but he finds a brochure of the company for which he works. He is horrified to discover that Elliot is not a real aircraft engineer, but merely a designer for a model aircraft company. The plane they built under his instruction is nothing more than a giant toy. Following this, an enraged Frank confronts Elliot, but the latter remains confident that his plane will fly. He claims that the principles of flight are the same for the model and the real thing. Also, what else are they gonna do? Meanwhile, the others begin to panic, fearing that all their efforts will be in vain. Ian gets so angry that he points a gun at Elliot, scolding him for wasting their time and resources. Frank tries to stop him from pulling the trigger, while Elliot continues to assert that his plane will fly. Just then, a strong wind from a sandstorm blows in, causing the plane to lift up. This fills the group with hope, and they decide to give it a try. However, when the sandstorm passes, they discover the plane buried in the sand. Whatever hope they had some moments ago has now been shattered. The workers look devastated, and it appears that they have accepted their fate. However, Frank refuses to give up and encourages them to push themselves one more time. He reminds them of their families, who have been anticipating their arrival for days. This finally boosts their morale, and they decide to use a rope to drag out the plane. They give it all they have and somehow manage to succeed in their mission. Finally, it is now time to start Phoenix's engine, and Frank heads to the cockpit. There are only 5 detonators, but even after using 3, the engine doesn't start. Frank then takes a big risk and uses one to clean the cylinder. Fortunately, the plan works and the propellers begin to spin. Seeing this, the workers are overjoyed and they run over to the wings and lie down. It turns out that this makeshift plane only has a cockpit, and the other crew members must hold on to handles attached to the wings and lie down. But just as they prepare to take off, they notice a huge group of bandits coming to attack them. The plane starts moving forward while the bandits continue to fire at them and chase them on horseback. In this intense moment, Frank launches the plane off a cliff, causing it to fall, but it quickly catches the wind and floats back up. The aircraft then continues to fly steadily across the vast desert until it reaches the city. In the final scene, 9/11 happens. The movie skips forward several months. Frank and AJ have started their own airline called Phoenix Aviation, which has become an instant hit. Ian has become a professional golfer, while Kelly is now the manager of an ocean oil rig. As for Elliot, he appears on the cover of Flight International magazine, dressed in a flight suit with the headline, "NASA's New Hope?" Why, because he rolled a toy off a cliff? I don't know about that. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.